two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. In 1630s New England, facing banishment from their colonial community, a family is forced to relocate to a plot of land at the edge of an ominous forest. With unknown evil lurking, the oldest daughter is suspected by family members of being a witch, an accusation which eventually becomes true. Slowly, mysteriously dark events occur with family members disappearing and dying one by one. Once the entire family is gone, that daughter, Thomason, becomes or joins the spirit of the wood and the witchcraft which inhabits it. Director Robert Eggers spent 5 years studying and collecting real accounts from that time period of writings on witches and demonic possession for the script. Actually, much of the movie dialogue comes from these period sources. But in a way, though, it almost doesn't matter to me what this movie is actually about, because it's so stunningly beautiful, haunting, and has a very deep and breathtaking mysticism about it. I love the idea of movies making me feel a power or magic in the wood or earth, because there's a real sense that there's something bigger than us about it, something sacred and ancient which transcends humans and human problems. Watching the movie this year, though, a strange interpretation surfaced for me. It's simple, but it's there, and it's this. This movie could possibly be about having the courage to do your own thing outside of the system, followed by examples of failure and success down the unbeaten path through the rest of the movie. At the beginning, we see the father and his family in front of a panel of judges in their community. There seems to be an insurmountable argument over religious practice. Rather than bend or ignore his beliefs, the father chooses to split from the community and start his own. This is the moment where everything else becomes possible. This is the unbeaten path. If the father gives in and compromises his beliefs, the movie doesn't happen how it happens. Yes, he and his family get almost totally destroyed because of his decisions, but not all of them. And I'm obviously horrified, as many people I assume are, at what happens to the family, butchered and murdered one by one. But if we think of them as metaphors, this perspective becomes clearer. How many of us actually do the thing we want to do in life? How many of us stick with our convictions in the face of challenge, especially when we're talking about the big life plans, career path, life path, etc.? This family is on a unique path. More vulnerable, subject to an intense group of different challenges, definitely. It's like they're bohemians or artists refusing to toe some line and sacrifice their beliefs and convictions for anything. And once they're on that path, each character represented, to me, either the different challenges or successes a person might experience. Whatever plan the dad had, he obviously didn't achieve. So to me, some of the characteristics represented things that got in the way of him achieving his goals. Fanaticism. Underskilled, for example, his failure to raise crops, which you could argue that the soil was sort of infiltrated by dark magic, but his failure to either recognize the crops or to grow the crops were kind of on his shoulders. The stubbornness to adapt. He doesn't seem like the kind of person that's open to criticism. Harsh time period, sure, but perhaps a weakness. The mom seems to have a loss of confidence. She has a loss of faith, anxiety and depression, insurmountable grief. Now, these are all things that are totally understandable and justified in the context of what's actually happening to her. But as a representation of what she might be trying to achieve, these are some of the things that might get in the way, so to speak. For the oldest son, the inability to understand how to get out of the wood, to get lost in the wood, I don't know if it's naivete or unfamiliarity with his surroundings. Lust, addiction maybe. You could see at the beginning of the movie, he has a few glances at his sister's breasts, and when he gets lost in the wood, in front of the witch's house, the witch appears to him as sort of a voluptuous woman, which she knows will lure him in. Now, she probably would have killed him anyway, but it was easier, I'm sure, to get him to bite that worm, so to speak. For the kids, this is difficult because they're so young. They're innocent. It's hard to think of anything except maybe the representation of innocence lost. Now, in the case of Thomason, here's where we get the representation of a success story. We get a specific example of what she becomes, of course, a witch. Unfortunately, many bad things in her life had to take place for that to happen, losing her entire family. But sticking with this idea of people taking a different path to what everyone else is doing, she is a success story. Despite all the heartache and challenges, she literally rises above to become something powerful. If we take the movie literally, she and the witches in the wood murder her family, and Thomason eventually becomes one of them. Brutal, horrific, unspeakable. But as a metaphor, she's made it. She's became something she loves and achieved some form of greatness. It's a representation of the positive side of being on a unique path, rising above challenges and becoming successful at making it all work. The obstacle is the path, so to speak, something that perhaps the other characters resisted along the way. Not the innocent children, of course, but Thomason did not. Or she found a way through, not around. And this brings me back to the Robert Frost poem quoted at the beginning. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Is this an overly simplistic or completely insane interpretation in terms of being very removed from what the movie actually is? Maybe. For me, I always want to find ways I can connect with art, and preferably in the most simple way I can, which I believe this interpretation does.